Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again. And I realized I never did a review for this, the phone I've probably been using the most this second half of the year, the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So let's go ahead and change that and share my long-term review of this phone. Let's have a look. So good to see you guys all again here with the top-down format. And in the meantime, guys, because I do have a number of very awesome products on the way, I did realize, I had not really shared my experiences after the number of months now I've been using the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So just want to share my top 5 favorite things and then a few nitpicks I do have with this phone because there are quite a few. Let's get into it. So the first thing I really enjoy about this phone, guys, is the design. And Apple, of course, they haven't really strayed away from that squared off look. But what you see now is a lot of companies are actually starting to adopt this style. In fact, the Xiaomi 13 series is going to have this squared off look, and the regular 13 is going to have a flat panel display, which I can't wait for too. The design of this phone has been excellent, and this deep purple color has also been fantastic. The other thing I've really enjoyed is the display, and I'm not talking about that dynamic island there, we'll get to that, but the display on this device has been excellent. But the key feature I've enjoyed, guys, is the brightness. This thing gets so bright. It is ridiculous how bright it gets, and beyond that, it really makes a difference when you're using this in direct sunlight with sunglasses. Viewing angles are just pretty much best in class. And yes, is the dynamic island, is it the revolution that people thought it would be? Not really. It doesn't bother me in terms of aesthetics, but I guess I've gotten used to it. I do see it, I do acknowledge it. There are cool ways it interacts daily with Face ID, banking, with your timers, with your music. But to be honest, I find myself rarely going up here to click in Dynamic Island. It's kind of an afterthought, but that doesn't take away from the display, which I do think is probably one of the best on any smartphone to date. Number 3 has been the performance. No issues whatsoever in terms of performance, but let's talk about the elephant in the room, the other half of performance, battery life. It hasn't been that amazing, guys, and I'll show you here, but looking at my 10 days, you can see it here, 5 hours, 59 minutes, average screen active time. I mean, that's not too bad if you think about it next to the competition, but this is so much less than what I used to get with my iPhone 13 Pro Max. I would say the battery life on this 14 Pro Max is about 80% of what my 13 Pro Max could deliver. And that for me is a disappointment. So while performance with the A16 Bionic has been excellent, battery life with this phone really has just been good to average, and that is kind of a disappointment for this 14 Pro Max. And it's crazy because one of my favorite aspects of this phone initially, guys, was the always on display. And let me tell you, if you go to my display settings, my always on display is off. But if I turn it back on, there you see it. Being able to interact with this, with all these different awesome wallpapers that you can include, with theming, that's been an awesome part of that. And seeing that engaged on the always on would have been my 4th favorite feature. And I still think it is a game changer, but I have it turned off, mostly because of the battery life. I would really love to use always on, and in my opinion, it is a really game-changing feature here on the 14 Pro Max. But honestly, because of the battery life drops that I experienced before, I'm just going to keep it off for now. But there's one big redeeming quality of the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and that is my top 5 and most important favorite thing about this phone: the cameras. You knew it, guys. The cameras on this device have been excellent. Super fast shutter speeds. And I tell you, the big difference here is now that included larger sensor here on the 14 Pro Max. It makes a huge difference. The 2x and the 3x zoom shots are excellent. They're just excellent shots. And video is still best in class, gold standard. Are we getting these crazy periscope zooms and that capability on this phone? Not really, but what we are still getting is an incredibly solid experience day to day. I gotta say it, I've even heard from some Android fans out there who have mentioned to me that now that the iPhone is using this larger megapixel sensor that they're considering switching to iPhone from their current Android phone. I think it was a big move here for Apple to do this, and the results definitely prove it. It may not be the best smartphone camera. I think a lot of you Pixel fanboys out there are going to say Pixel 7 Pro just destroys the iPhone in stills, but in video I still think this takes the cake, and the cameras are clearly still some of the best you will get on any smartphone to date. So that's it, guys, and my final verdict here on the iPhone 14 Pro Max after nearly 2.5 months of use. It's an excellent phone. I've loved my time with it. The cameras, the design, the display, they've been amazing. But the big question mark I had was battery life. And here you see it, guys. I did unplug just about an hour ago. I'm already at 93%. This is the kind of just drop off I didn't see with the 13 Pro Max. If Apple could have kept the battery capabilities, the battery life of the previous generation in this 14 Pro Max, it would be the perfect iPhone. As it stands, it's an excellent iPhone, but I do think if you're using the 13 Pro Max, you have no reason to upgrade, and if you actually value battery life, you may want to consider the recently released iPhone 14 Plus, the large size, because that is essentially an iPhone 13 Pro Max this year, and the battery life I've heard on that device is excellent. So if you're really in it for that, that might be the better one to consider. But if you want to get the latest and greatest, you can't really go wrong here with this iPhone 14 Pro Max. But hit me in the comments. What are your thoughts on the iPhone 14 Pro Max? And if you have been using the 14 Pro Max for the past 2.5 months, hit me up in the comments. What is your experience like? I'd love to hear about it. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon for future updates. Stay tuned, guys. More great content coming. And of course, some really awesome new releases on the horizon. There have been a couple of delays with these China releases, but hopefully they will be out and about very soon. Stay tuned. So that's it. And this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech signing off. Have a good one. Amazing phone, guys, but the battery life, it's just meh. Oh boy.